Good afternoon, fans. Welcome back to Stage Zero. I am Zach here with Chris. Say hello,
Hi.
Chris.
Hi there.
And we are back to give you some more coverage of what's been going on, particularly with SpaceX here over the last week. And it has been kind of a crazy few weeks. Things blowing up on the pad. Everyone's looking to see which piece of debris has been moved now. And it looks like, as you can see from this photo, we've got some both from our photographer Jordan and some from RGV Aerial Photography, that show that a lot of progress has been made here in the last week or so. Chris, give me your initial thoughts on what we're seeing here.
I think the first thing that really catches my attention is all over to the left with the tank, because this is where you can see all the bits and pieces of ship that they found literally in the bushes, in Rio Grande, everywhere, and they're just like compiling everything there so that they can have a look at it and see if there's still anything useful to be learned or if it just goes to the scrapyard.
Yeah, and you can see some, if you want to play name that part of Ship 36, you can see that they've kind of loosely organized it over here. You've got what looks like the header tank right there.
Yeah.
I don't have the annotate on. I don't have the drawing, but I'm just going to assume that y'all can kind of see here. I might turn that on in a minute. You've got a lot of the downcomer pipes, it looks like. Got a lot of the hole, and then it looks like you've got some of the there was a flap here over here a second ago. I maybe scrolled past it, but I don't think they're going to try and reconstruct this thing at Massey's, although that would
Obviously
be
not.
kind of that would be kind of funny to see. But yeah, you've got a lot of it cordoned off over here by this big tank. Certainly, it kind of reminds me of that photo of Elon and the team after one of the Falcon 1 explosions, where he's kind of just like squatting down in front of just a pile of shrapnel. Looks kind of lost, but he's clearly thinking very deeply. I'm sure there's probably been some workers who have wandered around this pile of debris and have had similar thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Also, you organize these parts to get a better picture of how much of the debris you have already found. That's the other thing. It's like you need to know
Mhm.
if there's something essential still hiding somewhere, or if they really got everything that they had to retrieve.
Yeah, and then over here to the right, I mean, some of these pieces, I can't tell if they're still in the or the river over here. You've got, I think, a few here and there, but they've managed to fish out this giant chunk, and then they've also stacked a bunch down here. Which, if you look closely, and this, if I zoom way too far in here, it's going to be blurry, but you can see the heat tiles have been blasted off a little bit, but then there's some that still made it on there. So. Um, Not trying to sound flippant, but I don't know if this would be considered if a heat towel can survive that, I think that's pretty good. But yeah, you've got a pretty decent section of the nose cone barrel right there.
Yeah, and one thing you can see here is you got the crab stand or the static fire stand on the trench, and you can take that perfectly as a size comparison because if you remember,
Mhm.
the ship has 9 meters of diameter. So the hole in the middle is 9 meters, and that gives you an idea of how huge these chunks of debris are. Also, the cranes are a good size comparison.
Yeah, and I want to mention too, there was a view from a different camera where the a crane had been filmed uh, falling over. I
Yes.
don't have an updated photo on that. I don't have any updates on whether someone was injured, but I think it may have actually been this crane. But clearly, you've got it right here, and this is obviously right in the middle of this giant mess, which is the methane ground support equipment main cluster here, right by the ship disconnect. Um, this is probably where the most extensive damage looks to have occurred. I don't know how you like, if it were me, I mean, I would, if I walked up to this, I wouldn't even know where to start. But thankfully, the guys and girls that are in charge of this cleanup and the repurposing of all this will know what to do.
Yeah, I think for this main part of the plumbing, the only sane solution is to cut it off at the nearest connection point, get the area cleared out so you can start building it up again. I don't think that there is much hope for these pipes.
No, and the condensers over here, one just got completely destroyed. These other two here on the
Yeah,
lower left and right
they
quarters, they're gone.
definitely, yeah, completely.
I think
Most likely the fourth one as well.
all, yeah, I think because I mean, as you can see up here in the top of it, it's pretty damaged as well. You can see. So here's the thing. We have a small rocket dog barking in the background. Forgive that. You can clearly see by the blast marks on these tanks that, I mean, so I actually noticed this the other day. It's interesting. So the blast happened right here on on the quick disc on the sorry, the static fire stand, and then um, clearly it blew this way. And then you also have this side of the tank, which is facing away from the static fire stand, has a very pronounced scorch mark, and even some paint has been blasted off here. So something must have hit this condenser. It looks like that one just flat out exploded. And then I think that's what caused this scorch mark too. So interesting to wonder what happened there.
Well, one thing I don't want to forget this time is you guys just hit the like button because that triggers the algorithm and gets more people to our stream. We forgot to say that last time and just only mentioned it in the very end.
Yes,
So it's really nice
like
to do
and
that right
subscribe.
now. And thank you for watching already. I think what you can see there is if you're looking at the stand as the start of the fire, you will have ripped lines that bled methane and oxygen, and that gave it the fuel to burn through the pipes and get all the way back to the condensers. And these were also still bleeding methane, so it just neatly burned off, and you got like this segment of fire just moving forward to where the food was. And I think this is also the thing. We saw it burning for hours, and the only
Mhm.
source of fuel it had was gas still. So it was actually a stroke of luck that they could let it burn off slowly instead of triggering another explosion that is killing the tanks. So I think all in all, we actually averted a bigger disaster here.
Yeah, it definitely could have been worse. I mean, you could have had all these tanks go up. Um, Even these looks like they are some of the closest to the sorry, I keep hearing the rocket dog. These are some of the closest to the blast point, and looks like the tanks themselves are still intact. They're just quite blasted. Um, but then obviously you still have pieces of the ship, hung in the mess here. But yeah, definitely the power station looks like it's completely gone. The ship quick disconnect arm absolutely trashed. This total loss, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But kind of begs the question here too. I mean, that was the Block Two ship quick disconnect apparatus, and if you're looking at what SpaceX has been talking about here at length here for a while, and even Elon too, there's two Block Two ships left, 37 and 38. We haven't seen 39 or any of the Block Threes start stacking, so you kind of have to wonder in the time that it would take to either repair this or replace it at this site, would it just be better off to move to Block Three and start testing with those? Not a question I'm qualified to answer, but definitely one worth wondering about.
I would say that I'm not even sure if the ship quick disconnect will be different. That's the other thing. We already know that the booster will likely have two disconnects now, but
Mhm.
I think we had no signs at the moment that really speak toward them having a new kind of disconnect on the ships. So maybe they can just rebuild a new one and then use it for the entire test campaign of the third iteration of the ship. But we'll see.
Yeah. And then another close up here of the stand. You can, I mean, just see how the ship quick disconnect got completely blasted back, but the inside of the stand is still, I mean, you have a few of the clamps here that are blown off.
One
Um,
thing that I find
yeah.
super interesting as you just zoomed in is look at the rust. Yeah, you have areas that were completely blown clean, like the complete paint was gone. Everything is rusted that had the paint blown off, and you can see that there's a large area of this stand that is still black, and that is not
Mhm.
blackened by the fire. That is the original color. So, actually, yes, the stand is in not really such a bad shape.
Yeah, it's just a scratch, as Elon would say here. Just a few scratches, as we would say too. Um, but yeah, it has looked from the videos we've seen of that thing rolling down Highway 4, en route to Massey's for rollouts or for static fire testing. It is an extremely stout looking piece of equipment. Very looks like it's very sturdy, and clearly, if it can if it can survive, at a loss for words looking at this thing. If it can survive a blast sitting directly on top of it and only look this bad, they're doing something right with the design. I'm going to switch the angles here. I'm going to go to a photo from our photographer, Jordan. Wanted to get a bit of a different perspective here with Massey's. Make sure that focuses. Um, this was actually, I think, a little bit earlier in the day, a couple days ago. As you can see there, the roads have been very effectively cleaned. Uh, these two cranes right here can definitely get in and out a lot easier. As you can see here, you've got the nose cone uh, corralled in the back of the of Massey's there. But we mentioned this in the latest episode that came out a couple days ago. The concrete is in great shape. This is not a pad one situation where after flight one, where you had, tunnels being dug by the power of the engines. Um, with Ship 36 explosion, everything was outward and the fuel burned off relatively quickly. It wasn't like a sustained 33 engine cutting torch just driving into the ground for 10 or 15 seconds. So a lot of this damage, and I mean, clearly there's damage on the ground, but the concrete, still looks great, which is safe to say that makes it safe to say that the stuff under the concrete, any plumbing under there is probably good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, if there would have been explosions under the concrete, you would see it on top. There are no cracks, there's nothing. It really looks neat, nice and clean. They can start building on that. And I'm pretty damn sure that they already have like a huge order list of stuff that is already incoming.
I would honestly say this concrete looks better than my driveway right now. And I have not had a rocket explode on my driveway yet. So I would say that they're doing pretty good with regards to the overall quality of that. It's a lot more concrete than my driveway, I'll put it that way. But yeah, the static fire stand, interesting perspective there. Can see just how high off the ground it is, right over the flame trench. Um, but yeah, I'll be interested to see equipment, like you said, pipes being cut over here to the left during in this like main mess of the methane equipment. That's going to be the area I kind of focus on more when I'm looking at pictures of how this is progressing, and then also the power station. I want to see how quickly that gets replaced. Um, because SpaceX can't really just sit idly by with these last Block 2 ships and not static fire test them. So how they manage to do that in the midst of these repairs will be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I think that we will see an intermediate solution. We will not wait for the entire thing to be properly rebuilt. So I think that we should see work on the stand really soon. And I'm really curious to see what kind of temporary solution they come up with for the methane part of the deal.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see here. And let me actually go to a different photo if I can get it to switch here. There we go. Um, it really is kind of stark how undamaged this side is compared. Like this looks fine. A little bit of scratching there, but then up here, just disaster. But yeah, talking about temporary solutions, um, where would you, I mean, if we can just have fun speculating all this, because that's what we do. Where would you even begin to to go through and rig up a temporary ship static fire
Well,
apparatus here?
first of
I mean,
all, I can tell
yeah,
you where I would not do it, and that is anywhere on the launch site. Yeah, there's been so much
yeah.
speculation by people saying, well, we have the new stand that's not really finished yet.
Mhm.
Maybe we can put like an adapter ring on it and then test ships there on the new trench or on the original OLM, or even just put some sort of a temporary solution at the launch site because you got a big tank farm there, so you could handle the pressure for the gases there. But I don't
Mhm.
think that they will risk the launch site for that. I think that's what the test site is definitely for. So I expect any intermediate solution also to be built at Massey's. And when you look at it, there's still some space. I mean, just imagine you put the ship there. You will probably have to bring it with a separate transport stand and then crane it onto the static fire area. And then you have a lot of space in the back to build up a temporary solution, but then it would be even closer to the ship. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say. Maybe they even go to the left of the original tank farm to do that, but I don't know. We will see first indications, and then we will have some base to speculate on. What's your take on it?
You are far more qualified with the technicals there to speculate than me, but I think the launch mount or the launch site would not be, I mean, I don't even know if it's compatible at this point. So, I mean, you're also, and I've said this since the explosion happened, you're running the risk of damaging far more critical equipment there than you are at Massey's. Obviously, you'd rather Massey's not take an explosion like this, but if you damage the tower or stage zero, some of the intricates out there, you're looking at a much deeper delay, longer delay rather, and then um, you potentially bottleneck even more critical parts of the testing campaign. Like you're not able to launch if you know if you damage the tower and stuff like that. I wanted to switch gears here a little bit and show you some of the recent sites or pictures from Jordan of Pad One. Obviously, this is kind of what we were saying. We'd heard, people kind of wondered, can you do a static fire test there? Can we just see how brown it is? And
Yes,
the
it's so
weather out
bad.
there at the weather out there at Starbase is really crazy. You're right on the Gulf, very hot, lots of salty wind blowing, and I don't think Pad One is not that old. I mean, you look at the Cape in Florida, you've got launch sites that are decades old. Pad One looks like it's been around for a decade with some of this wear and tear. I mean, look at the rust on a lot of these surfaces, even the chopsticks arms.
Yep.
It just looks a little. Obviously, they've fired off 9 rockets from it, so I think they're good to go for a few more. But that being said, I think the initial thought with some people too, and I thought this too, is like, let's just plop ship 37 right there, hold it with the chopsticks, and just fire the engine straight
Yes.
down.
Yes.
What
Let me get
what could possibly go wrong?
yeah, let me like fill in there. The first thing, there's been a lot of speculation like why not just hang it from the chopsticks and then just put it up there and then it doesn't put so much damage onto the OLM. But then it would
Yeah.
also fly off. It is literally dangling from these arms. If you just hang it on there and you just fire up the rockets, it will not stay there. Also,
Yeah.
if you would somehow fasten it to the chopsticks, the tower is not made for that. The tower is not made to hold a firing rocket in its arms. And then the final solution of putting it on the OLM, that is not simple at all because this thing is called stage zero for a reason. It is a very important part of the entire operation. There's parts in there that are usually found at the end of a rocket and not in an OLM. So
Mhm.
there is the starting mechanisms in there for the spin up for the outer Raptors, and a lot more technical equipment that is really meant to just be under a booster, not under a ship. It has a different configuration. There's different risks. There's different streams of gas going. It's simply not compatible. I think it would even be easier to just throw a stand right next to it than to alterate this. And the other thing is, once we have tested, we want to fly. We want to fly really fast. If everything would
Yeah.
have gone as planned, we would either already have seen the start of Flight 10 or it would be just a couple days away. So whatever they will figure out in order to test things will be something that will not compromise the original OLM.
Yeah, exactly. And also the thought of it being buckled to the chopsticks when the engines are firing just kind of made me laugh because I mean, imagine like holding a Roman candle in your
Yes,
fingers and you light it. Do you think that it's gonna not take your hand with it? I mean, at the least you're talking about some damage to the chopsticks. So, kind of a
yeah,
fun thing to imagine, but not something that would work in practice.
absolutely.
And I just wanted to give you guys an update here. We have about 365 people watching. So welcome. If this is your first time, happy to have you. If you're a longtime viewer, glad to have you back. Hit the like and subscribe button. If you haven't already, the like kind of fuels the algorithm and helps get the content in front of your eyes more. So appreciate having y'all, everyone here. And let me see what else we have here with the OLM. This perspective here from Jordan doesn't look too rusty. I mean, it's a little bit of a lighter shade of brown. It's not like just complete rust like the other side. Um, but yeah, I mean, work on pad one has it always needs to be maintained after each of these launches, and it looks like it might be a while until pad or flight 10. So it gets to chill out there in the 105-degree heat and the salt winds. Um,
We,
oh,
we
you're gonna
just
say
had
something,
a,
Chris? Sorry about that.
we just had one of these questions in the channel. It says, why are we not using a magnetically charged for field to keep the plasma from the hull of the spacecraft? I must say, if you really have a solution there, I'm totally sure that SpaceX is super happy to have you as their new employee because if anyone has some sort of technical knowledge that is so advanced that it is an actual solution for an active heat shield, this is worth gold, literally, more than gold.
they would probably be very and seriously happy to hear it, not in a sarcastic way, but they'd be like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
of course.
okay, we'll use that." Um, Wanted to show you guys some more pictures here from Jordan about Pad 2. We can pivot over to that. Obviously, we've got a lot of work going on with the orbital launch mount and the covering on the left side here. It's been called a gantry. I'm not sure what the official community approved term is for that. I call it the gantry underneath a pound or a million pounds of scaffolding since they're still working pretty heavily on it. But the booster quick disconnect cover is right here. And as you can see, they have started painting it white. So that'll probably last about a day in the summer at Boca Chica or at Starbase. So it'll look nice for about, 24 hours until the first launch completely blows it away. But yeah, this is kind of an update here on. I'm going to go through a couple of these a little bit quicker because there's some interesting angles here. What do you think of white, Chris? What would you have painted that if that were you in charge?
I really wouldn't have chosen any specific color. I would have chosen the best protective paint there that it's out there and just
Right.
yeah, put that on there because they do have fresh wells there. They do have all sorts of little dents and stuff still from the original building period, and it's just sane to at least attempt to protect the entire thing by paint. We will see how
Yeah.
long that will last once we put a lot of heat on top of it, but yeah, I'm looking forward to not being too long until then.
Yeah, it's making a lot of progress here. And I want to ask the chat, what color would you paint all this to? Put your color recommendations in there so we can see, and then so we can have the pleasure of envisioning, a green orbital launch mount just for a few seconds. That would be pretty funny if they actually decided to paint it fluorescent green so you could literally see it from space, day or night. It'd be a good idea. Let's go through a few more of these here. And actually, I did have a really cool photo from Jordan of the Giga Pin, as I call it now. Maybe it's been called something else. People have called it the God Pin. This is the Pad 1 chopsticks. It's literally this massive pin that holds the chopsticks to the carriage, I think is the way you would say it. But like, here's a dude up here for reference that someone says tie-dyed in the chat. So that's actually a pretty
I
awesome
second that.
recommendation. I would love to see a tie-dyed orbital launch mount. That would be awesome. And then like the flames from the flight itself would actually mix the colors more. So you'd end up with a totally different color arrangement after the flight that you had before it. So we've got the Gigapin here holding the chopsticks down. I'll have to look and see if we have a picture of the pin for pad two.
One thing that you just didn't mention is you just said that it holds the sticks to the carriage. It also
Yes.
holds the entire structure. I mean, that's literally where it's
Yes.
suspended from.
How can I forget that? Yes, it holds everything. That's why it's like
Yes.
literally 3 feet wide, just solid steel. Um, But yeah, interesting picture of that there. You can see a person, for scale of just how big that is. So a couple of weeks ago, before things were blowing up at Massey's, we were talking about some exciting news over in Florida that we'd heard. And I'm going to pivot a little bit here to a rendering that we've gotten from our awesome animator. I think it was Vooper that did this. Um, Slick 37 or over in Florida. And I'm going to have to zoom a little bit further in here to get these bars off the screen. This is literally going to be like the Starship hub in Florida. This is like where they're going to be working, I think, with the Space Force. It's going to be like the Space Force Starship Mecca in Florida. And there is a potential that they can potentially have 4 towers here. And from the way the environmental impact statement or the assessment reads, is you would have, I think it's 2 launch towers, and then if I think it's very clear that they're saying if space allows, you could potentially have 2 catch towers. So, we're looking here at Starbase for years now. It's like, oh, we've got 2 towers. This is awesome. Like, imagine double that. I just think it would be really, really cool. So this is a
Yeah,
rendering
and
of what that could look
also
like.
this is LC37. We still have LC39. Yeah, we are literally looking at a potential of 6 towers in Florida between these
Yeah,
two launch sites. Yeah, that will
and they're
bring a
probably
total
not
up
going to
to eight.
stop with
It's
just 6. Yeah.
no, they obviously won't. But with the rate of ships that they want to get going for the Mars campaign,
Mhm.
we really will see more towers. Also, if they are really going forward with the ground-to-ground transport idea, and I think this will happen, then we will see even more towers. I think the next obvious location for another tower set would be Vandenberg And
Hmm.
from that point out,
Yeah, that's true.
everything is imaginable. I can even see them outside of the US as well. If they want to go for global super high speed transport, they will have different hubs, likely close to some airports, you know. They just have some sort of way to transfer freight from there to there. So I don't know. It's so super new, but I think we could get used to the idea of seeing way more of these all around the place.
And this is a rendering from Elliot or Vooper on our end here, and showed kind of the ground view of what four towers would look like. Just crazy cool. Again, in this rendering, you've got the two catch towers in the middle, and then you've got a launch tower on the far left with a booster already caught. I guess all of them would have technically like catch capabilities because you need to have, I mean, the chopsticks would be functional in all of them, but
Yes,
really cool image of this.
yeah, that's absolutely true. But you must also remember that we're looking at a starting cadence of multiple launches a day. And that's the
Yeah.
reason why a catch tower is even something that you want to build at all. Because you could imagine, for example, when you're looking at the Mars campaign, you have to put up a lot of tankers up there to fill the fuel depot.
Hmm.
And that would mean that you have boosters returning right after the duty and ships returning a bit later. So you could see a cadence like a full stack launch with a booster returning directly with a new booster already put on the pad for,
It's rockets, so it's
yep,
awesome. And also in this image too, I wanted to shout out Vooper too. He did a really good job of actually implementing the Block 3 variant here of the booster and the ship on this particular tower right here. So you've got the three grid fins, which have been the cause of much controversy, and then you've got the newer highlights on the chines, and then I think that's a Block 3 ship he's put up there too. So really good work. And also the integrated hot staging ring. So uh, pretty cool stuff there from Cooper, and a really cool view of what.
yeah. That's also something that you just said, a couple years. And this is something that is very close to what the reality will be. Because opposed to it saying SLC 37 currently, this is already old because exactly that building is already
It is
gone.
gone.
They can literally start building there, and they will definitely be really quick once they get all the permissions and everything is planned out. We will see them just chugging away at it. They will just build tower after tower, and that also means that we will likely soon see a standard fabrication row for tower segments because we need so many by now that they can already start like building them on a line.
Yeah.
They can have specialists that are literally only building towers for years to come.
There will be a lot of things in the future that like take a few weeks or months to build now, and we'll just see parts of it going back and forth like it's normal. So we'll see, like you said, tower segments. We'll see ships and boosters, moving pretty regularly. Lots of stuff like that here. Getting some feedback here in the chat that we're lagging or stuttering. Let us know if that continues here. It might be an issue on the back end. We'll keep an eye on that. Want to make sure we're actually making sense and not lagging with our words too here. But yeah, I X'd out the ULA tower because very quickly after the environmental impact assessment or whatever it was published, SpaceX took a great liberty to knock that down like the next
I
day.
am not sure if it was SpaceX. It might also
Was
be
it not
with
Space?
when you're
Yeah.
when the lease ran out for ULA, they might be obliged to like clear out the area. I don't know. I don't know who actually was the one party that did this destruction. I mean,
Hmm.
it could be SpaceX. If they're waiting for something, it literally was SpaceX. No questions asked. But it might also be that it's part of what ULA has to do to give back the land.
I was going to say it wasn't me. I didn't go out there and push it down. I'm not strong enough to push down an entire launch tower, but it would have been funny if you'd seen someone like running away after the tower had fallen over. But that is not what the cameras recorded. They just showed the tower falling down. Um,
I just read by somebody
yeah,
something really nice. I just wish that had been going on 4 decades ago when I was still in my 30s. I totally agree. This is also something where I say, why couldn't we start like a few decades earlier? But I'm still
yeah,
super glad that I get to see stuff like this in my lifetime. If you would have asked me 15 years ago, I would have said no way.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy, and it's ramping up really fast here. And wanted to give a shout out to Alex here for throwing this graphic together as well. Gives kind of a better view of what of where things will go on Slick 37. Now, this is obviously only considering for two launch mounts. You'll have one potentially up here on the northern side, the one at the southern side. Um, in the rendering we showed you, there's kind of room to imagine, the third and fourth towers here in the middle. But you've clearly got this is all laid out in the statement too. They've already got a plan, and it won't take long for it to come together. So another good overall or overhead view of what this will look like when we do get to have this. And it'll just be cool to have, like you said, multiple Starship launch sites in Florida. And like you said, I'm curious how Vandenberg's going to look. I think recently there was news that they're going to, start launching a lot more Falcon 9s, even Falcon Heavies. And I don't remember the number of the pad off the top of my head. We reported it a while back, but yeah, it's not going to slow down, and there's only going to be more locations for Starship to launch from.
Yeah, I'm really curious of like when they have 3 or 4 towers and trenches experience of building these things faster, how fast they can build one of these launch sites. I think
Mhm.
they will get to a point where they can do it in a year. And most of the time that they're really taken there would probably be curing of the concrete because that's the one thing they can't really accelerate up to a point. And yeah, so I think once they start clearing up somewhere, it could be possible to see rockets launched there. I mean, super rockets launched there, Starships, a year later, and that is quite spectacular.
It really is. And like you said, that's we're going to look back on this in 2 or 3 years and just think, wow, we've come. Hopefully, we're going to think, wow, we've come really far. I'm going to, speaking of that, I'm going to pivot back to the build site here, the production site. I'm going to throw up a photo from RGV, which gives a good view of progress that's being made at the Gigabay. Um, they are still grading and tarping and pea graveling all of this to get the foundation level. I'm pretty sure I understand the process here. Obviously, you grade and then you roll the tarp out and then you put the pea gravel and then you smooth the pea gravel because you want the foundation to have a level base. But Chris, what are your thoughts on how fast this is coming together? Because it is moving pretty quick.
Yeah, I think they go in full steam. There's not much possibility to go any faster because there's only so much equipment and people that you can coordinate safely in there. So I think we're seeing civil engineering at peak speed.
Yeah. And I have a lot more photos of this too. I'm just trying to find the best one, the best ones here. And there's plenty of angles. We had kind of, and this is a more distant view here of the footprint. As you can see here on the right side, you've got some rebar columns being assembled, which will eventually get placed. So good to see that. That'll be the next step. Got these, it's a little bit blurry there. I think those are the giant piling drill bits. Those things are absolutely enormous. Have you ever seen one of those on the side of the road where they've been drilling, the piles for a ramp off of a highway or an interstate? They're just absolutely enormous. They were building some train tracks near my house for a local like public transit rail, and the I saw one of those actually being used, and to see a 30-foot long drill bit spinning is just kind of wild. But they've been putting those to good use here at the Gigabay. It looks like, and I think you can see it from here, there's an exit door here from the Star Factory. So obviously things have been rolling out from there. You've got the ring sections. There will be an alleyway, looks like, or not really an alleyway, I guess a streetway, whatever you want to call it, between the Star Factory and here. And then you've got a little bit, they're allowing for a little bit of a path here behind it. So right between the sheet piles and this fence, I'm not sure exactly how far that is, maybe 30 feet between the edge of the boundary here for the Giga Bay and Mega Bay 1. But it looks like they're allowing for a little bit of space in between it too. So definitely fun to watch this come together.
Yeah, and again, the sizes, the dimensions. Look at the truck that's parked in front of that exit from the Star Factory, and then you can see how wide even that small path is. Oh, it's not a
This
truck,
white truck
it's a
right here,
car. Yeah, but still,
I think that is
look
a
at it.
Highlander. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like a super small car, and you can still see how
Mhm.
many you would put next to one another.
Yeah, exactly. And I can tell you, I've been down there. I think I've been down there 3 times to Starbase, and the high bay was big, and it looks minuscule compared to the infrastructure they're building now. I'm eager to get down there again and see the Gigabay when the walls and the sides start to go up too. So it will definitely be a sight to see. If you haven't been to Starbase, if you have any kind of ability to do so, if it's not too much trouble, too expensive to travel or whatever, if you can find a way there, move heaven and earth to do it because it is a really special place. There's kind of an aura. It's a better perspective. And there were a lot of people speculating on how many gigabays can they fit in the footprint here of Starbase. Um, Clearly here looks like probably two. Probably not going to have three in that area. I mean, if you can just visually copy and paste this, maybe this footprint gets you back over here to where the back of the Mega Bay 2 is. But I think eventually it would make a lot of sense to end up with two gigabays there back to back. And um, but yeah, definitely a good viewpoint here if you're looking to see just the scale of everything.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how they can develop the lands further. There's things like way earlier in the chat we had the question of will there be a second Massey's? And yes, the question is totally valid because we will need more testing facilities if we want to go for a cadence like it's planned. If you want to launch multiple Starships a day, or even just a couple Starships a week, you will need the possibility to do dual testing at least. And so there's one question like, are they having a possibility to somehow acquire more land to have a second test site? Or the other question, when you think about building a fleet for like the next Mars window and you're having like a couple hundred starships waiting, where are you going to put these? Are you going to put them out in the open? Is it just going to be like a new car lot that we are seeing there? The super rocket garden? I mean,
One
they
time
can
deal
definitely
only.
charge there. I will gladly pay to walk amongst these, but there could be the possibility that we will also see a literal Starship garage. And that would also
Yeah.
be one amazing building.
Yeah, it will be. And you can almost see booster 18 there on the right side. I think there's a lift messing with it right there. Hopefully the lag has not prohibited y'all from seeing a lot of this too. I think it's gotten back to normal here. Um, Also, if you zoom up on this, you can see some other stuff going on. Wanted to mention a few more things here that I've seen. Um, Got the ship quick disconnect arm. A lot of eyes have been on this lately because people want to see if the plumbing has been, put on it yet. Clearly, a lot of those pieces are still laying down next to it. But progress on this thing will be telling. If they are making a lot of progress on that, then um, the sooner we see this moved out to pad two, then that kind of gives you an idea of how far along they are with flights from that pad in terms of how close they are. But what do you think about that, Chris?
I think it's amazing how long we've been seeing them working on that. I mean, we saw that they
Mhm.
built the structure and then there was a long pause of nothing. And now they have been working on that piping, I think, ever since they took away the flame bucket, the wedges. Yeah, and that was like the biggest thing that they were working on. And of course, the actual OLM. And now they're completely focused on the plumbing for the quick disconnect. And I'm really amazed that it took them so long. I would have thought that by now it would long be out there.
Yeah, and for weeks now, it seems like everything has kind of remained in the same place. And this is a photo from Jordan with us here. Wanted to mention a few things here that you can see that are interesting. In the latest episode, we talked about this. Looks like potentially a new um, ship stand platform, or not platform, but spot being built here over at the Rocket Garden. Currently, there are three technically ship spots, and then there's two boosters already out there with booster 17 here and then booster 12-1 here. Also, booster 17 has not had its grid fins for a while. So maybe one of those was in the episode we mentioned, and you can not, or actually, you can barely see it here on the left side. Someone's grid fin has been placed. I like this over here in this parking lot. I want to hear guesses in the chat of which booster's grid fin this is. Is it maybe a trick question? Is it maybe not even been assigned to a booster? This was always going to be the parking lot grid fin.
It could be like the Gridfin serial number 0. Yeah, the one
Yeah.
that they built right before they knew how to build them.
Yeah. They said no matter what happens, this is going in the parking lot, and then it's out there.
Yeah,
So
or we see a sign that they originally thought that they would run block 2 for longer. And now that they're moving up, they literally don't need it anymore because there won't be enough boosters of this generation.
yeah, I think you're right. And you can see a lot of work is being done on Remedios Avenue here. Um, And you can see these tunneling blocks are being placed, over here on the right side too. And they have more of these right here. The thought is that this eventually kind of connects to this drainage ditch, and then, or I guess you'd call it a discharge area. I imagine we'll see some follow through there. But Remedios is I mean, you used to be allowed to drive on this. I don't think you are now, but you could drive right back to the Rocket Garden, or at least walk back to the Rocket Garden. And then I remember seeing Ship 20 back here when I went down there one time. But some work being done there, some tunnels being applied here. Lots of speculation could happen about what's going on back here. It looks like it's more complex up here too, um, closer to the that would be the south side. But yeah, curious if we're going to see a lot more stands being put over here at the Rocket Garden. You've got room for a lot. And what do y'all think about them reusing something from the Rocket Garden? We have not really seen that yet. And now, if you just kind of use deductive reasoning as far as the Block 2 boosters that are left, it's pretty much Booster 16, Booster 15 1, and Booster 17. So 17's been chilling out here in the weather and the heat and the wind for a while. What do y'all think? Are they going to use that one? Chris, what do you think?
I think it's highly possible because it's still got the cap there. It doesn't really look like they already retired it. Having the grid fins removed doesn't necessarily mean that they really did it intentionally to like never fly it again. I could
Mhm.
think that they will re-outfit it, but with the changed situation now after the disaster that we just had that literally moved everything and reshuffled everything, we don't know. This is so things have really changed with that. I think that we might see less use of this booster generation than was originally intended. There's so many things that we just don't know. We don't know how far the new prototypes are along. We don't know if they actually like slowed things down or if everything is still going at the same pace. Because if it is, they won't have the time to like still bother with that last generation.
Yeah. And speaking of the Block 3, can't quite see it here. This is from RGV again. Um, there were a couple of signs. They had the door open on some other pictures earlier in the month where you could actually see, I guess you can just see a little bit of it right there. This is the first Block 3 booster that's actually being stacked right now that we know of, right there in that corner. Um, Always going to be interesting to watch things go in and out of the Mega Bay one, because when this one's fully stacked, I'm curious. We've obviously seen renders from SpaceX, and Elliot's put together some good renders of what it'll look like, but seeing it in person and out in the open for real for the first time will be cool. There was some work stands over here. We've mentioned this before, that people had speculated could be used for converting the existing work stands to Block 3. They are now gone, presumably moved into one of these mega bays here. But it's always fun when the garage doors are open. You can
Yeah.
kind of sneak a peek. This used to be a thing I used to always, when I first started watching the Starships, or I mean, watching the updates back in like 2020. If the mid bay and the high bay, if they had their doors open, you could see the two. This is back before they even started building boosters. Like the two, you could see Starship prototypes like stacked next to each other. They weren't even, they're a lot smaller than the booster, so you'd only see like a few ring sections at a time. And people would be like, "Oh, is that SN8? Oh, that must be SN9. We haven't seen that one yet." And one of the cool things about these photos is they always kind of give us a sneak peek of the stacking. And again, the cool part of SpaceX with the development is that you can kind of see it unfold in real time.
Yeah. There's a question that can only be answered by you, from Joe. Can you get any further than the road if you visit Starbase? I have no idea. I haven't been there. You have?
So just to clarify that question, like you can get right, I mean, there's security obviously right next to the perimeter of, I'll see if I can change this photo here. So let's just zoom in here. So the road obviously is right here. You can't go across that line where you're going to get caught by security, and that's not allowed. If you're asking